Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with the one and only Mr. Millennial Mike. And he has found a Stanley Druckenmiller video that he wants me to react to. If you don't know who Stanley Druckenmiller is, let's just say he's a legendary Wall Street investor. Someone a lot of us haven't heard about, but somebody I have definitely read and researched and follow. So what'd you find?
Yeah, so people like to send me videos for us to react to. And in our normal Q&A, I can't always include them, so we're going to do them separate. But this is Stanley Druckenmiller calling for a recession and a hard landing in 2023. So, Mike, we're going to watch the video and just see what you think about it.
I will be stunned if we don't have a recession in 23. Don't know the timing, but certainly by the end of 23. I will not be surprised if it's not larger than the so-called average garden variety. And I don't rule out, not my forecast, but I don't rule out something really bad. Why? Because if you look at the liquidity situation that has driven this, we're going to go from all this QE to QT. We're following an asset bubble. We've been doing all this running down on the SPR, which is now, that's the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It's now below 84 levels, even though obviously oil consumption is much higher. We've had a bunch of myopic policies that have actually delayed the liquidity shrinkage. QT has been almost entirely offset by Janet Yellen running down the Treasury savings account. Our central case is a hard landing by the end of 23, but I don't know. I've been wrong on a lot of things. I could be wrong on this, but since I do it for a living, that's our forecast, which is a recession in 23.
All right, so Mike, he used a bunch of big terms and acronyms and things like that. Would you break it down for us?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things in there. First and foremost, I'm glad Stanley and I agree. If you go back on my channel, I called for a recession in 2023. The only difference is I called for a recession in 2023 in January. So I'm 10 months ahead. So I think a recession is coming. I haven't changed my opinion. I actually think it will be housing led. Again, historically speaking, housing has led many recessions, and I think housing's in a depression. I don't see that getting any better with rates over 7. And I don't think you're going to have to wait. I think Stanley kind of gave himself an out. I don't think you're going to have to wait till Q4. I think it's Q1, Q2. And again, I called that earlier in the year. So I stand by that. Second, he talked about the garden variety recession, right? Just like everything, there are averages, right? In a general recession, you're talking a couple of points negative on GDP. You're talking a couple of points higher on unemployment. You're talking about 11 months is the average recession. I think Stanley is absolutely right, and I would have called that as well, that it's going to be bigger than the average. And why is it going to be bigger? Well, the fact is we haven't had a recession. We've been delaying the business cycle for 14 years. QE, quantitative easing, has become the drug we've been so addicted to. It has caused the asset bubble that Stanley recommends. So I think he's absolutely right. I think it will be bigger than average. I think it will be longer than average, but it will be a recession. Then he goes on to talk about kind of the third thing is it could be something really bad. That's like, what does really bad mean? So I kind of equate it to what we have, most of us remember, which was the Great Recession, right? Or the dot-com crash if you're a little bit older. Those were pretty horrible events. And I think he's right. I think this could be, when you look at GDP, you look at unemployment, you look at these things, it could be on par with that. And then he talked about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, SPR. I think he's absolutely right. I think government intervention has played with the inflation numbers. And the fact that Janet Yellen has been playing with her reserves has delayed the impact of QT. If you're on my channel, and I've said it many times, and I'll say it again here, QT scares the living daylights out of me. We've only tried to do it once. It broke stuff bad in 18. And now it's bigger, much bigger than it was then. I think QT could be painful. In fact, it's probably the thing that scares me the most is QT, quantitative tightening, right? Right now, they're trying to burn off about $100 billion on the federal balance sheet a month. I think it's 95 billion. Well, let's round it to 100. It freaks me out. It does. And it's kind of why I've been telling folks, I think 2023 just has to be a bad year. I don't want it to be. It's not what I hope for. It just had, because let's just say this. If 2023 is not a bad year, then we're just going to, it's going to be like the .com crash. And the reason the .com crash sucked is it was 4 years of death by paper cuts. The first paper cut, the second, but the thousands paper cut can kill you. I don't want one of those. That was way painful. So, that's what I took. And again, I think Stanley's right. I think it's an easy call to call a recession next year, given what's going on.
Yeah. I don't know if you're taking topic suggestions for your Saturday morning deep dives, but for the folks out there like me who didn't go to college and don't have an economics degree, if you ever wanted to break down quantitative easing and quantitative tightening into a deep dive as to why it's scary and what it actually means, lecture style, Professor Mike, I'm sure there's more than just me who would watch that video. Just saying.
Just saying. I took it down. I wrote it down.
All right. Well, that was your reaction to this one. We got more videos coming up, so I'll see you in the next video.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.